Hey, what's up? This is Carrero. I'm here to explain to you today how to play Italians without dying in the attempt and without studying a lot of fucking theory. The idea behind this is I want to explain to you how to play this variant in particular because I think that you can play it systematically without needing to comprehend a lot of variants, without needing to comprehend a lot of theory. You can just play this out of the plans and without having to prepare yourself for days and years to get into this position. So the main objective of this video here is to teach you how to play an Italian with both white and blacks, and you are gonna learn actually what the plans and the ideas are behind the opening. So I hope you enjoy the video, and let's start with the chess. Totally recommend you to play this opening with the white pieces. So I'm gonna start with telling you that e4, e5, knight f3. The idea is that e4, e5 is just controlling the center, nothing really crazy yet, and this is just okay. So knight f3 attacking the pawn on e5, and then knight c6, which is probably the most common response to knight f3, which is another move of development, controlling the pawn on e5 and also controlling the square d4. So it's okay, bishop c4. So now what's gonna happen? That's a good question, right? We're going to start to see what the plans are. This bishop on c4 is basically attacking on f7. That's the main idea of having the bishop on c4. And we're going to see some general ideas of what to do and what do you want to accomplish in these positions. So first of all, to say that this bishop often goes to b3, usually goes to c2 where it defends on e4, so that you can play c3, d3 and then d4, breaking the center is one of the ideas. Also, this bishop goes to b3 sometimes and it stays there. We're going to see that more in depth in the future. What to do with this knight of b1? That's a good question, right? This knight of b1 often goes to c3, then it goes to e2, and then it goes to g3 with the idea of coming to f5 with knight h4 and knight f5 and taking an outpost out of the square. This is common. Also, this knight often goes to d2, f1, g3 and f5 for the same reason. People often will play something like castle, rook e1, and once the rook is on e1, then the knight is going to go to d2. The knight is going to go to f1, g3, and f5, so that's common. With the white pieces, often you want to castle towards the king side. It is not so common to castle towards the queen side, but it's another idea that you may play. I would recommend you to castle towards the king side. So what else do you have here? Your pawns. What are you going to do with your pawns? That's a good question. Your pawns are going to go to d3, c3, and eventually they will go to d4 in many cases. Your pawns are gonna go sometimes to h3 to give a little bit of room to your king, which is castle on the king side, and also to defend the square g4. So that's okay. What else do your pawns do? Sometimes your pawns go to f4, breaking on the center in this fashion, instead of breaking in d4. That's another way to proceed. Those are some ideas for the white pieces. So what to do with the black pieces? With the black pieces, often you'll play something like bishop c5, knight f6, castle towards the king side, play d6, bishop e6, so that you are challenging this bishop on c4. With the white pieces, you'll see the same thing with e3, bishop e3, challenging the bishop on c4 usually, and also helping you to break on d4. What else do we have here? You're gonna castle towards the king side usually, and you're gonna bring your queen to d7, your rook towards the center, and then usually you're gonna try to break on d5. Your knight on c6 is gonna go sometimes to e7 and to g6, with more or less the same idea that the knights are going to d2, f1, g3, f5, so that you can go to f4, or so that your king is protected on the king side. So that's good for you. Those are some general ideas, and now we're gonna see some examples here. So now we're gonna go to Short versus Carlsen. These players are some of the best chess players of the world, and we're gonna see a game and we're gonna see what's happening. Knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, knight c3. In this variant with knight c3, which is kind of passive sometimes, the idea is that you play knight c3, you're defending on e4, you're defending on d5, you're gonna play d3, bishop e3, castle towards the king side, and all these things are gonna be alright. Your queen is gonna go probably to d2, your knight to e2, to g3. So knight f6, d3, see how your bishop can go either to g5 to generate a pin, or can go to e3 to challenge the bishop on c5. d6, bishop e3 is probably the most common way to proceed. The bishop goes to b6. So here's the thing, you may be thinking, Paul, wait motherfucker, what if the guy takes on e3? That doesn't leave me with double up pawns? Yes. But the thing is that as you're in the opening and in the middle game, A double up pawn towards the center is okay because you are controlling more space in the center, and then you're also breaking on d4. At the same time, your pawn is taking towards the center. It's opening this file, which might be useful for you in the future to attack with your rooks. That's okay for you. So you do not have to be afraid of this f takes e3. If the guy takes, you take, and that's okay. So unless there are some tactics on it, you shouldn't be afraid of bishop e3, bishop takes e3. So that's okay. Bishop b6, Paul, but that's not losing a tempo. Yes, but the idea being that here in this position, if you take on c5, right, let's say that you do something kind of silly, h6, if you take on c5, they take c5, then you're doubling up pawns, but you're doubling up them towards one of the sides of the board. You're not going towards the center, you're going towards the side. So that's not so good. At the same time, it is playable because you're challenging the center here and controlling the square d4, giving a good square for your knight on d4, but that's probably not good enough for your position to compensate for this. D takes c5. It's possible that people will play bishop b6 commonly. Sorry, bishop d3. People will play bishop b6 commonly, so that if I take on b6, the same idea happens. I'm doubling up pawns, but they are coming towards the center, controlling the square c5, for example, and now I'm opening a file for my rook, so that's nothing to be concerned of. That's okay for you. So bishop b3, the idea is that you know that his bishop is going to go to e6, and you do not want to play bishop b3 in the future, so it's more or less the same thing. Bishop e6, castle towards the king side. One more time, if I take on e6, then that's helping the other guy, because you can play f takes, then d5, and that's okay for you, or just castle towards the king side. So we have already seen that idea before. So you castle, h3, giving a little bit of room to your king. In some positions people play g4, but you have to be extremely careful with this. You have to know that you control the center extremely well, and that there are not maneuvers to exploit this g4. So that's something that you have to consider. Also, h3 is controlling the square g4, which is okay, so that there are not knight g4s in the future or bishop g4s in the future. Rook e8. The idea being that you're bringing your rooks towards the center. That's good usually during the middle game, and during the opening you want to bring your rooks towards the center. Why, Paul? Why do you want to bring your rooks towards the center? Because not everybody's going towards the center, so maybe these squares here, maybe these pawns are going to be traded, and then what's going to happen is that these lines are going to be open, and rooks like lines which are open, so rook e8 makes sense. Bishop takes, pawn takes, knight e2, and see how the knight is coming in this trajectory here to go to f5, which is okay for you. So h6, more or less the same idea, stopping him from playing something like knight g5, giving you some space. d5, and now c3. The idea being that if you take here on e4, I'm not afraid, I just can't take. And also in the future I want to play bishop c2, defend here, and then play knight f5, for example, might be one idea. So b5, stopping me from playing c4, but this b5 I don't like that much. Rook e1, bringing your rook towards the center because that's what you do. d4, and then this is more or less a common position. Now queen c2, defending your pawn on c3, I'm giving some space for your rook to come. So those are some general ideas. We do not care that much about the rest of the game. We're just seeing the plans and what do you have to do in these positions. So Ivanchuk versus carjacking, oh no. e4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, bishop c4, this is just a transposition. So here's something that you have to be really concerned of. Whenever your knight on c3 and whenever you have a knight on c3 and a bishop on c4, and the knight of the other guy is on f6, there might be some chances of him taking on e4. Why? Because now you can play d5 and generate and create a fork here and take one of the pieces. So often this is something that will happen. Bishop d3, d takes, bishop takes. Bishop d3 is probably the best way to proceed, so that you do not lose the pair of bishops and your bishop goes towards the center. Bishop d3, bishop takes, and now you can just castle and have a decent game. Nobody dies here. Rook e1, d3, and finish your development. So this is okay. Something that you have to be really concerned of is that if you're going to take on e4, you do not want to have your bishop on c5, because let's imagine something like bishop c5 in this position. Let's say a3 here, knight takes, and then d5, and you're losing your bishop. So that's no good for you, right? Because your bishop is now hanging. I take on c5, you take here, and I have a piece of advantage. So you do not want that. Bishop c4, knight takes c4, something to be really careful with. It's kind of give an equal position for the black pieces. So bishop d6, if you're the white pieces, you just bring your pieces out, play d3, follow the general principles of the opening, and you'll be okay. Nobody dies. So that's okay. Move number 3, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, knight c3, bishop c4, bishop c5, d3. So the idea here is that now you're basically defending your opponent e4, bringing your bishop out. That's a good development for you. d6, bishop e3, the same idea as done before, h6, queen d2. You might even castle towards the queen side, but you have to be really careful if you want to do that. Like if you're a more aggressive player, you can do so, but even then it is kind of dangerous. So bishop e6, castle towards the king side, bishop b3. Here's the same idea. In this occasion, they didn't care if they took here. They wanted to play this position with opponent c4, something that I do not like that much, but it is possible. So castle, bishop b3, rook d1, and see how everything is happening. Just okay. You have a decent development. You're threatening d4 in the future. Maybe you want to break on f4 maybe. Just queen c1 with the idea of playing knight c2, knight d2, knight d3, because you were kind of pinned here and you didn't want that pin to exist. So now you have these ideas. The other guy doesn't like that plan that much and he took, and then you can play knight d2 for example. You just can try to break on f4, which are some general ideas. So if you play f4 and the guy takes on f4, then you have d4 like for free. Nobody's challenging you for the center, and that's okay for you. So those are some ideas. Carlsen versus Nakamura. I fucking love Nakamura because it's my favorite player, but he never wins. So like against Carlsen, he never fucking wins. So that's something that I do not like about Nakamura. Nakamura, go motherfucker, win. I like this player, but he's not winning. So Nakamura, I know that you will be the world champion someday. And even if you don't, then well, you were a good player. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop. Something funny is that Nakamura will even play against Carlsen with sunglasses, because he thought that Carlsen had like an aura or some shit, which was something that he could avoid with a pair of sunglasses. So that was kind of funny, but that's Nakamura. d3, the idea is that you're not playing knight c3 to stop this knight takes c4, which is kind of annoying. d3, okay, bishop c5, see how c3 is coming, your bishop is coming to b3, your idea might be to break on d4 in the future. So a6, the idea is that usually your bishop goes either to a7 or to b6 in this position. If you play a6, then that's giving you some room to go backwards. Even if I play d4, then you can go to a7, which is a little bit more safe. So that's okay. Knight bd2, knight f1, knight g3. And now you might be thinking, Paul, stop a second. Why are you moving the same piece 3 times in the opening? Because here that makes sense. The idea is that as I'm moving my pieces out, and I'm getting into this really good square, I do not have to castle and play rook e1 in the future, so that I can play knight e3. That's one advantage. You're like winning a tempo in that sense, and at the same time you cannot exploit it, and you're bringing your pieces to a good position. So if you cannot exploit this, moving my piece to d2, to f1, and then to g3, then it is not bad for me. So castle, bishop e6, h3, queen d7, knight d7, knight h4, knight g6, and then knight f5. Something that you have to be really concerned of is that if the queen is on d8, usually there are sacrifices on e4 if you play knight h4. So you have to be really careful with that, because there are x-rays. Calculate those things. Calculate. Some other ideas might be bishop takes h3 in certain positions, but as there are so many pieces around the king, you shouldn't be concerned about this in this position. So knight d7, knight h4, knight f5, and then just bring your pieces out and break with f4. So that's okay. Ideas with both sides. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. Usually just bishop c5, d6, knight f6, knight d7, knight d6 are some ideas, right? Knight f6, bishop c5, your bishop is attacking on f2, that's okay. d6, knight d7, knight d6, so that you're maneuvering just in the same fashion that the white pieces. Bishop e6 is okay. Your bishop can go to b6 or to a7, depending if you play a7 or not. That's okay. Usually you are fighting for this square too. You have to be really careful with that one if you are the black pieces. If you are the white pieces, basically we have seen the same ideas before. d3, knight c3, c3 sometimes, knight d2, knight f1, knight d3, bishop e3 are some common ideas. Bishop b3, bishop c2 happens sometimes. Just keeping the bishop on b3 is okay. Castling towards the king side. If you feel really violent, then castle towards the queen side and see how it goes. It isn't necessarily the best way to proceed. But now we're gonna have to start a little bit of theory, which is gonna be boring. But I do believe that in this position it is important for you to know theory about these things that I am gonna say. So there are at least 2 variants where you have to know theory. If you are the white pieces and if you are the black pieces. Well, mainly if you're the black pieces playing against e4. So if you're the black pieces and in this position you play knight f6, you have to know what to do against knight g5, which is a fegatello. Fegatelo is extremely dangerous because it is attacking on f7. One of the guys who I was coaching played in this position queen e7, and then he died. Because the pawn on f7 is hanging, you're kind of losing the rook in the future, that's annoying, so you do not want that. You have to know what to do in this position. This is just theory, and I can explain to you a little bit of the theory, but it's just theoretical. So d5 is the only move to play, because with this e takes e5, then you're obstructing the move of the bishop, and now the bishop cannot take on f7, and there's nobody attacking on f7. The best move in this position is knight a5. You do not want to take on d5, because if you do so, then comes knight takes f7, king takes f7. Like if you do this, then this comes, king takes, queen f3 check, and now I'm taking your knight, and your king is on the center, so that's no good for you. In this position, you do not want to take there. So you want to play in knight a5, the idea of the v in that now you're attacking the bishop, and the main variant is bishop b5, c6, which is defending you from the check, probably the best defense in this position, b takes, and now the bishop usually goes to e2. And in this position you can play something like h6, winning a tempo here. The knight goes to f3, and then you have e4, knight e5, bishop d6, attacking the knight, and finally d4, defending the knight. And if you take here on passant, which is the most common way to proceed, knight takes e3, and then you have a playable position. Your pawn down, yes, your pawn down. Your pawn structure is kind of silly, your pawn structure is kind of silly. But on the other hand, you have dynamic compensation for it, because your pieces are out, and of course this knight is not so good, but you can maneuver it in the future. You can play your bishop out, castle towards the king side, bring your rooks out, and try to fight for the initiative. So that's the theoretical way to play this position. If you want to, you can memorize this. If you don't want to memorize this, then be careful with knight f6, because that might be really dangerous. If you want to play bishop c5, there is a Mueller attack, which is really dangerous, which is kind of like as dangerous as the Fegatello, which is 95 against knight f6. So I do believe that you have to know this one. c3 is dangerous. The idea behind c3 is that you want to play d4. The main variant of the Mueller attack is that d4, e takes e4, c takes e4. Here you have to know the theory. There is no other way to sort this out. The theory is just the best move. There's nothing to do. These two pawns here are really strong and are really dangerous. So you have to play bishop e4 check, knight c3, knight takes e4, then you castle. The idea is that you could take on e4 because the bishop was pinning the knight. But now, in this position, the knight is taking the knight on e4. So the best way to proceed here is bishop takes e3. If knight takes e3, b takes e3, bishop takes e3, then queen b3 is winning. After bishop takes a1, if you go greedy, then I take on f7, you go here, and then I play bishop g5, you have to defend. And finally I just played rook e1 and take your knight on e7. So that's no good. Like I can take on a1 and then play rook e1 and take on e7, and then I am winning. So that's not good for you. Rook e1, remember that when I take on e7 I'm taking your queen. So that's really dangerous. So you cannot play this position. What you have to play instead is here, wait a sec, no castling, c3, knight f6, d4, e takes e4, c takes e4. If you're the white pieces here, this is really dangerous, and you can learn this to surprise your opponents, because many people just do not study this theory. I would recommend you to study this if I didn't think it is important. So knight takes e4, castles, bishop takes c3 is the best way to proceed, then d5 attacking the knight, and the bishop, and everyone is hanging, so you have to do something. The best move here is bishop f6 probably, then rook e1 attacking the knight on e4. You do not take on c6 because that's losing a pawn there, that's not good. Knight e7, you take here. If you're the black pieces here, you have to play d6, because otherwise I play d6, and then it is really hard to meet this position with the black pieces, because you cannot play this something and then develop your bishop, so that's not good. Strategically, you can give away this pawn, you're opening the diagonal, and at the same time you're limiting his efforts for develop his pieces, so that's not too good. In this position, bishop d5, in this position d6 to stop me from playing d6, then I play bishop g5, bishop takes c5, knight takes c5, h6, queen e2, h takes c5, and you say, no, Paul, I'm losing a piece. Yeah, but I can bring my pieces here. And now this is really dangerous for you because I have a lot of pressure here. The best way to proceed, bishop e6. The idea behind this is that if I take with my rook, then I'm losing a quality, and if I take with a pawn, then I can play f6. This bishop is kind of useless. This rook here is kind of useless now because the position is not so open. And the idea basically being that you're gonna play rook e3, rook h3, try to bring your queen to h5 and try to kill the other guy here. But it is not so easy to play with the white pieces. This position is equal, but it's something that you have to learn. So if you want to learn some theory, these are some important lines that you need to play. If you want to play it really aggressive and kill people who are not aware of the theory, then this is your line. If you're the black pieces, you have to know this, or you'll get crucified sometimes. So thank you for watching this video. These are some general ideas, and I believe that after you know this, you can actually play this fucking variant without being afraid. You can actually play the Italian without being afraid. So I'll see you around, and keep it fun. I'll see you in the next opportunity, my fellow. Yay!